Hi, everyone. Happy Friday night. How are you? Look at that. The color looks better now. Thought I wanted to get on and speak a little bit about, from the perspective of being a mom. I lost my child. I didn't lose him somewhere, but he transitioned from Earth. He died October the 29th. Some of you have heard this before, and maybe others haven't. I'm adding little tags to my videos so other moms, other dads, partners, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever. Man, this is really not easy. I pulled up a picture that I wanted to share with you tonight. And this was taken in 2009 when we moved back to California. We're originally from Santa Cruz. And so here's a picture of my son. He's the one with the white shirt right here. The NorCal shirt. It looks like there's like a big glare on the screen because of the glass. So I'll try to, there you go. And he literally was going to go take off. He was so happy all the time. He was just so happy. And he always had a glow. He was so radiant. People always told me how wonderful and healthy he looked and vibrant. And he loved to read, and he was on the football team. And things started to change. His thyroid started to slow down quite a bit. And I kept saying, Zawa, there's a thyroid issue there. Oh, Mom, you're writing a thyroid book and you're just really thyroid obsessed. And I was like, no, Zawa, you got to listen to me. There's a couple different things that you really need to take so you can kind of prevent what I'm seeing with all my clients for so many years, which is anxiety, depression, lots of cysts in the body, just low energy, fatigue, and lethargy. So today was one of those days that I thought to myself, tomorrow, February the 29th, he died October 29th. It's going to be 4 months since my son died and transitioned to the ancestor realm is what I usually how I like to say it, but not everyone understands that. And maybe you haven't heard it spoken that way before. I want to go over a couple things about, the reality of losing your child, because it's something that when other people would mention this to me in the past, and even a local woman had lost one of her sons. She had a set of twins. Her name is Dawn. And when she lost her child, I saw this enormous grief on her face. I saw it completely change her. I've seen her look much better, because a period of a year or more went by and the physical aspect starts to heal up a little bit. But what you typically hear mothers say, oh, bless up, Kim, good to see you. What you typically hear mothers say is that it feels like there's an elephant on your chest. Okay. I was eating strawberries and I realized this is my favorite Mighty Nest bowl, Kim. I know you know the silicone bowl. I use it for everything. It's probably like curry stained and everything else. And this is my silicone cup from Mighty Nest. I made a cup of tea. I made the organic India rose tea. I love the rose tea, and it really just calms the system down. So if you're a mom listening and a dad or a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a husband or wife or grandparent, maybe you raised your grandchild and now they also died through the opiate crisis or addiction. It could be alcoholism. It could be meth. It could be other prescriptive pills. It could be Adderall snorting. It could be, for sure, it could be a benzodiazepine or a benzo like Xanax. Okay. I am sending you so much love because I don't really understand how to completely navigate the feelings of waking up in the morning, in the AM, the rise. I don't really know how to navigate the first couple of months of, was I having a bad dream? That didn't really happen, did it? Did that really happen? Is my child really, really, really gone? Like I'm never going to see them again. And my eyes are puckered. Today was one of those days that I did a lot of crying. I cried in the morning when I woke up, and I could cry again. And I went to some grief counseling at the Allworth building with Peggy, and from 9 to 10. I got over and I got myself a vegan muffin at Whole Foods because they're usually only there for like an hour or two in the morning. And I thought I'm just going to I don't normally eat in the morning. I usually wait till like 12, 1, 2 o'clock, or as long as I can push it out. That's kind of my version of intermittent fasting, is to eat later and not eat first thing in the morning, because then you're going to keep eating all day long and it kind of gets your stomach into this groove, gets your digestive system into this groove. But I went over and I got a muffin. They had vegan muffins that were fresh and beautiful. And I was like, well, I'm just going to stuff some of my pain with this vegan muffin. And I had some ginger and lemon tea left. And I cried before I went into Whole Foods. And I went in there and I thought, how many times have I gone in there with Zawa? And I went to counseling and I cried a little bit there. And I thought, thank gosh I have that lifeline to sit down with Peggy. To be able to have that time to go sit down in such a beautiful office space and talk with her about my feelings. Oh no, my computer does this thing every once in a while, and I hope it's still going. Anyway, I then had a meeting from 11 to 12:30 to kind of go over some financing on my house, and that was not a real prim and positive kind of a thing, although the gentleman that Dakota was absolutely amazing. There were some snags there. There were some snags there, and I'm still kind of sniffly. And I left there and I kind of cried because I thought, I don't want to deal with this right now. I just want, at 4 months, just turning 4 months since my son died, with all of this rush and get funerals done and investigators in there and everything going on, this is the reality. How would I know this? I'd never been through this before. I'd never had like a really good friend or anything that lost their child. So I hadn't really been close to someone to really understand like what that feels like, the feeling of desperation and aloneness. And largely, here's why. Because you feel like you're responsible for protecting this person that you brought to earth through your womb. And now you failed, like you failed on some level. And even though on a cognitive level, you get it that you really didn't fail, on an emotional level, you don't get it for a while. Like, it's not that you beat yourself up, but it's just that you're like, I was that mother goose, I was that mother duck. I was that mother wolf. I was that mother dog, that I'm this human animal that has this innate, natural sense of, this is who I protect. This is who I brought to earth. Through me, I brought this person, through my bones, my blood, my teeth. I brought this person. And I looked at him so lovingly. I held him so close to my body. I didn't want to put him in a stroller. I didn't want to put him in anything else for a long time, until he was so big that it, almost started to hurt me to carry him everywhere, because he was such a beefy guy. He was so super healthy. I used to make his formula because I could not breastfeed. So I had to come up with a formula, which is something I would really like to share with people in my upcoming books, which will be able to get done now. But he was so beefy. Sometimes I would bake squash and put it in my blender and put my hemp seeds in there and put different things in there. And he would be, I've got pictures of him, sucking on kind of an orange squash colored baba. And I took him to goat farms. I took him surfing lessons. I took him snowboarding and skiing. And I just took him on boats. I took him whale watching out in California, where we're from. And we were at the beach playing most every day. I would get off work at 4 o'clock and I would run over and pick him up, and we'd run to the beach and I'd put him on the counter, and we'd go to Jalapenos and we would get our vegan burrito and get it cut in half. We'd sit there on the beach and eat our burrito about once a week. And we just have so many amazing memories that hold me over, as a mother. And I have hundreds of pictures. But what went wrong? What really happened? And why am I grieving? And why did I really lose? Why did my son lose his life? Why did he not complete a full life cycle? Why was he only just turned 24, August 22nd, and he died in October? So he wasn't even 24 and a half, okay? Why did that happen? That happened, and I want you to get this, because this is going to be in my book, and I want you to get it Because you could be listening right now and your child could be addicted. Your child might be addicted and you don't even know it, because with addiction, it is hidden for a long time. It's kept away because we feel ashamed, right? I mean, we don't feel like we want to say, oh, by the way, I'm using drugs all the time, to cope, or because I have anxiety all the time or whatever. But my son died because allopathic medicine never identified, this is so crucial that you hear this, never identified that my son had a slowed metabolism that was being exacerbated, it was added to by his diet that was high sodium, that started to affect his sodium-potassium ratio, which is so important that I pick up on the hair tissue testing, which leads to addictive personality traits, heightens them, so to speak. Hidden toxic and heavy metals that didn't show up at first into the level that they did later. As I got him into a sober home, and he was sober for a month and a half, the very last time he went into the Howard Freeze home in Duluth, where he went August the 6th. He exited on September the 24th, so about a month and a half there. After leaving Pathfinder's opiate detox at the end of July for the 5 days, into Howard Freeze sober home, we are seeing that articles are being written. Articles are being written by opioid experts that are saying that it is impractical for people to be treated for this opioid crisis. So this is the strength of the potential to hijack the locus coeruleus in the brain, the limbic system and the locus coeruleus. Look it up. When there is a thyroid imbalance, it is an even greater potential to addict the person and have them very lock, stock, and barrel locked in. So this explains why some people have a much more difficult time to pull themselves apart from a drug, and other people have an easier time. So we tend to think sometimes, those of us that have not suffered the path of addiction in terms of chemical substances that were formerly prescribed by allopathic medicine, a system that far too often has a pill for just about everything. We have taught our children through the universal teachings, meaning the predominant teachings taught in the middle school, the public school, the high school, is you go to the doctor and it's irresponsible if you don't go get checked. And you get something and you get rid of that and you take care of it. And usually that means you get a pill, you get it cut out, you get it radiated, you get it taken care of, and you don't let it drag on. But you don't ever see people going into the hospital and actually going through a course of healing, which takes time. But their bills are astronomical. They're in the tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars to lay on a bed and be poked and prodded and vital signs taken and drugs given and crappy, non-nutritive foods given through traditional dietitians that work in the hospitals that have been educated through our academic system, which is constantly turning over foods that are denatured, processed, full of nitrates and lunch meats and eggs and egg whites and all kinds of gross stuff that it's non-nutritive in terms of a human dietary consideration. So my son had this pre-existing issue with his thyroid, like about 80% of people. If you don't know and you're waiting for a clinical finding vis-a-vis the crook of your arm and a serum blood test to confirm that you're out of range and you in fact have a slowed or a fast thyroid, you're probably waiting too long. And I hate to tell you, but this is actually criminal. It's criminal because likely this was going on from the time your child was very young, right? So Dr. Brownstein has taught us a great deal about myxedemia in children. which means a very severe form of hypothyroidism, which may or may not be picked up on the PKU, which may or may not be picked up by your pediatrician. But there are some very glaring signs that I want you to pick up on when you read my book, Detox and Heal Your Thyroid. My book, Detox and Heal Your Thyroid, actually covers step by step. I'm revising it right now. I'm on chapter 3. I was gone all day today. I miss my son. And I felt like my hands were tied to some extent, because when I went into doctors and my son was in a situation where we were critical and he was having some pathomimetic toxidrome experiences, he was having a reaction to a sedative as if it was a stimulant. A psychomimetic is a stimulant instead of a sedative, like opioids are a sedative. They're an analgesic, they're a pain reliever, right? But ephedra, methamphetamine, and others are stimulants, just like these minerals on your hair tissue tests that I love to do for people are stimulating, they're lifting up and giving energy, or they're sedating and they're bringing down. Why would you want to bring down? Well, if you're in fight or flight all the time, like I'm in right now, my son died, I've got housing issues, I've got issues with the dogs. I mean, lots of things are going on. And yet I'm holding it down with a little help from my friends, the amino acids that I use, which are feeding my brain and causing my brain and my adrenal glands to slow down. And if I eat well, I can manage the potential for having a lot of toxic grief reactions, which are causing a lot of my comadres, my comrades, the madres, the other mothers, who say, I've got to take the Xanax. I've got to hit the bottle at night. I just cannot handle this. It's overwhelming. You're darn straight it's overwhelming, or you're darn spiral it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming to such an extreme that you can't even say to another mother, could you imagine losing your child? And they go, oh, whoa, no, I don't want to hear that. Well, of course you don't. Even the thought that you won't see your child again is so overwhelming. It's ridiculous, because, I mean, if someone would have said, imagine losing Zhao, I'd be like, whoa, I don't even want to put that thought in my mind. Right? Right or wrong? I cried at counseling. I cried after the financial meeting. I cried when I went over to Whole Foods, and I thought, I gave Kim a call at Pure Luminosity. Thank goodness for her willingness to sit with me for a little bit today and just say, oh my gosh, I am so overwhelmed right now. I'm crying and crying and crying. My eyes are all puffy again. I walked into Whole Foods after I talked with Kim and after I talked with Pam on the phone briefly, and I sat in the car for quite a while, and the bright sun was out. And I thought, oh my goodness. And all of a sudden I saw my son show up just in a glimmer. I saw him show up in a glimmer, and he had like a little bit of a smirk. And I was like, what was that all about? My son has a brown shirt. It's in my closet, and it's brown and black, and he wore it all the time. It's kind of a fleecy kind of a thing. It's kind of like his signature move that he wore, And all of a sudden, a young man goes walking by the front of my car, and he's wearing the same exact shirt, the same exact color. Like, I don't see that shirt very often. Like, I've never seen that shirt on anybody else, right? But these are the kinds of things that when you speak with moms, girlfriends, close people, it doesn't have to be just females. We know in our heart that when we're at our lowest, all of a sudden something comes by and it's so glaring that it's our loved one, that we start to realize on some very deep level, my goodness, we're living in an extremely electromagnetic environment where, as we're having these thoughts and everything is in the field, this field is electric that we're living in, this electric soup, these cells, this matrix that we're living in, that as you're thinking something, it's kind of like how Morpheus was teaching Neo in the movie The Matrix, right? He said, stop trying, just be it, right? So I told myself, I'm going to stop right now. I'm going to stop my worry. And I'm just going to be, for just a moment, I'm going to put my mind into, okay, so I did X, Y, and Z that I'm so afraid of because I've been stationed so long in one place. And I'm going to imagine that it's going to open the doors to a happier place for just a moment. These other things that were in my life, not my son's transition. And as I did that, I felt like I was being very, very lifted in a very sacred way that had something to do with not just me, but that my son was very involved in that. I got my wallet, my little clutch wallet. I said to the dogs, I'm going to go inside and I'm going to get you guys another one of these little bar things that they like. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to probably get a dairy-free, gluten-free grilled cheese sandwich for $2.99 at the deli, which is like my go-to when I'm like, I just got to get like a food drug that's not too bad. And I went in there and I ordered one of those. And up walks the young man that I've seen at Whole Foods for many, many years, just such an outstanding young man. He had his hair braided, so it was nice and long and dark. When he walked by, I was kind of leaning against the deli thinking, should I really order the grilled cheese sandwich or not, I got a bag of lemons so I could continue to make my lemonade and keep clearing my throat and healing my esophagus and healing my thyroid with the other things I'm doing, like my iodine and my L-tyrosine and my selenium, which I took right when I got home. And he said, I'm not quite sure, how to approach you on this, but he goes, I just heard a couple of weeks ago about your son. And I started crying, standing right there at the deli counter, and he goes, can I give you a hug? And I was like, yes, please, yes. He goes, well, I probably shouldn't have mentioned it. And I go, no, I want people to mention Zawa. I want them to speak about him. I don't want him to just be forgotten, I want to talk about him. Yeah, I feel pretty rough right now. Yes, I'm doing a lot of crying, yes, I go to work and I work with clients on the table and I just shut everything off for a little bit for the most part. And I go to work and I make other people feel good. And it takes a little bit of the edge off of me for several reasons, making other people feel good. Right. And then I come home and I'm here. And as the night goes on, and maybe I start coughing a little bit more because of this elephant on my chest that so many women have complained about. So as he's hugging me, and I hugged him and I started to kind of, how you kind of pull to let loose a little bit, and he's continued to hold me. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe how much I just needed to have arms around me, and just, it's okay. Like just to hold you, just for us. That's why I named my business in the very beginning, Essential Touch, is because look at all the studies were done, like as if we needed those studies about what happens to little babies when they don't receive touch, right? And I've talked about that with my own mother. But many, many, many people are living touch deprived and touch starved. Yes, the power of touch. Thank you for mentioning Zawa Z, Kim. And he said, you know what? He goes, in his words, he goes, I watched you do your best to protect him. Everyone loved him. Now, there's a difference between someone who barely knows your child, someone who's really never even seen him, and they want to say nice things and they want you to feel better and they want to prop up your mood a little bit. But here's someone that I saw observing us standing at the customer service booth where you walk in at Whole Foods. And I used to be in there every single day. I used to bring in another young man that I helped for like almost 2.5 years. And very, very let down by decisions and drugs. So I would bring Zawa in there, and Zawa would sometimes go into the bathroom, and then he would start using in there in a private space. And he would be in that bathroom for long, long periods of time. In the very beginning, I would say, would you help me get my son out of the bathroom? Because you lock the door in a bathroom like that. And I'm thinking, if he overdoses in there, because we went through so many overdoses, if he overdoses in there, how long is it going to take to get the door open? He could be dead on that ceramic tile floor. So when there's an endocrine issue, and opioids are endocrine disrupting, meaning it disrupts the endocrine is the hormone, the message system, the send and the relay, the transmission and the receiving. The hormones are the messengers, okay? Endocrine system, hormone system, the messengers. Opioid induced endocrinopathy is more common than we know. And let me state for the record, it's not being picked up through allopathic medicine 99% of the time. That's very, very, very sad. It's almost criminal because if you've got all these state-of-the-art machines and magnet scanning machines and CT scans, which with contrast increase the risk of cancer by 50%, why in the hell don't you know some of the basics, right? Organic India rose tea is absolutely amazing. And it's just very, like chamomile. It's very much a calming. It's some things like valerian root, which I started using way before Zal was born, probably, I don't know, like around 1985, 86. Valerian root smells a little musty and dirty. Not to be used if someone has active symptoms of bipolar, because it will just enlarge them a little too much for most people, not everyone. But some things like that are nervines in the herbalist world. So they take the nervous system and they calm it way down without people feeling drugged or, like they're sedated. Right? It brings me back to the Ramones song every time I think about that word sedated, and they say it like that. So a lot of crying today, a little bit of panic, a lot of sadness. And some days when you lose your child are going to be a lot more watery than other days, a lot more watery, a lot more tears, a lot more puffy eyes, a lot more puckering around your eyes. I mean, you're just not going to be able to feel like you can go through the day without crying some days, and different things can trigger it, from looking at pictures. And every night I pull up a picture of my son where he was looking really directly at me in the camera, and it's sitting down on the bottom, and I click on it every night. I put my reading glasses on, and that's a little better. And I sit there and I look at the picture of him and I think to myself, oh my gosh, what could have been, right? I put so much love and so much medicine. How can you take my baby away at 24? First of all, I'm not sure that my son injected himself. I am not sure. I have no proof that my son injected himself. I have, if you have not been through this process, we all have heard of an autopsy, right? That's where the medical examiner's office takes the person's vehicle, the body, and they examine the body, and they may or may not, excavate certain organs in the body. And in this case, my son's brain and heart was taken out and examined and looked at. You could see big, huge stitches going down where the heart was taken out. And then he was in a plastic body bag with his head out of it, and then a blanket over the top, where I have the pictures of him on my Facebook page. And my son looked, pretty much a slight bit of swelling, but he looked pretty much like he looked in life, pretty much. He looked really good without having had the embalming fluid and all that added later. He had been in the refrigerator for several days after he died. And I am very, very fortunate that I had 3 hours with his body, if you want to call it that, but I want to say with him. I saw his face change when I was leaving, like, oh my God, Mom, don't leave me. Mom, don't go, and I could feel him saying that. It wasn't just me imagining that. I mean, I literally could feel it with every core of my body. This little baby human was inside of me. It was feeling my feelings. We were symbiotic. It was feeding off of me, right? In what a Western male patriarchal medical industry would call parasitic. Perhaps on a very technical level, because of the language that system uses, which is very different than the language of a medicine woman, original medicine. As I just answered a question on Cora, which I sent over to Kim at Pure Luminosity, and I encourage you to also check out her channel on Naturally with Karen. Go subscribe, support people. She's been doing a lot of learning. She's got some other very varied interests, absolutely phenomenal to listen with and to learn from and to share with. You might not be someone who really wants to have your face on YouTube. You might not be sharing right now. Sometimes we're listeners and sometimes we're sharing. There will be times in my life where I'm just a listener and other times where I'm sharing. As I was speaking with the young man today, I said, you know, it's a bit much to lose your child, potentially lose your shelter, right? And to lose so many things and to have the fear of maybe not even be able to provide for 3 dogs that I have living with me, the eldest of which is very arthritic right now at almost 8 years old. Most people that know Rottweilers know that they are such big, heavy, lumbering animals. They're extremely prone through the inbreeding to end up with very pronated front paws and a lot of arthritic joints and hernias. And Rottweilers are actually extremely well known to have a lot of thyroid issues. So I actually have Fia, or Fire, if you want to just say it that way. They are all on supplements. And when I came home today, I pull out the ground beef, as much as I don't want to buy factory farmed, but Luna, for one, is extremely difficult, being a wolf dog, to be able to put supplements in it. She will spit it out. She will eat through something and find it and spit it out and then just kind of look at me like, see, I don't need to take it, you know. And I need to get them in her the most because she's had the mastitis and she's kind of got some darkness around that nipple still. And I'm working on healing that. So instead of cutting it off and radiating her and putting her on chemotherapeutic stuff, I've been healing her. I've been healing the 2 large dogs. Pablo's good to go. He's got no problems whatsoever. He has been sneezing a little bit. But the respiratory issues that you've been warned about is coronavirus. That's not really what's going on. So those of us that have fewer heavy metals are going to have, I'm going to say it really carefully, are going to have fewer concerns. Okay. So what I encourage you to do, I know a lot of people will be watching this later and, you know, they come to watch some of these live streams later when it's convenient for them. You can see the front of my hair still has to do the dreadlocking. I'm going to switch over to my hair for a minute. And I've got it kind of pulled back in a clippy, but I've got, you know, a lot of major dreadlockies going on here, which may or may not be interesting and cool and kosher to you, but I like them. They've got interesting shapes. Got a really big one back here that's kind of hard to see with the, okay. Lots and lots of dreadlockies. So I just kind of pulled it back. This little tiny bit in the front. There's actually right there. See how it's kind of joining together? And so I just leave it alone. Like, you know, I usually was pulling it back all the time, but I thought, well, it's getting really long. And then when they dreadlock up, they shorten like a lot of these guys back here. Okay. But I think they're really beautiful. And you can always tell the difference between a free-form dreadlock is that it's kind of flattened looking as opposed to the kind of sausagey looking kind of ones. Anyway, you'll process your grief, the hideous, seemingly insurmountable mountain of grief that is losing your child, or many people have lost multiple children just to the opioid crisis. 400,000 of us have lost our children. Did you anticipate that maybe your son or daughter could be 16, have a car accident, be treated by doctors, have multiple surgeries, and end up on pain medication because the pain was so severe and end up addicted to opioids? No. Did I predict that my son was going to have a skiing accident? His life was absolutely golden, had the girlfriend of his dreams. They were both living with me here. I was the happiest mom ever. You can go back and look at my Facebook page, 2014, 15, 16, super happy mom. I mean, happy. And, I never thought in my wildest dreams that this was going to happen. So the young man at Whole Foods today ended up hugging me 3 times. And he just said, this is like the darkest, in his words, the darkest parts of your life. I mean, losing your son. And he goes, you're straight up a victim. He goes, you're a victim because the effing, in his words, doctors should never have given your very young son months and months of these kind of medications and cut him off. And I said, and you know what? I don't do TV and I wasn't up on OxyContin. I didn't know that. How would I know that it has this kind of a potential to addict people. So now, after having this conversation, and of course it making you cry again, and you don't want to think of yourself as a victim. And I said immediately, my retort was, I'm very fortunate. Right now I go home and I have a warm house and I got the dogs and I got food and I've got internet. I mean, how fortunate am I, right? How many other women do I know about that Zawa told me about, like Josh's mom? I won't say the last name. 2 children. One ended up dying far before Zawa in September. The one died before the one in September, Josh, died being on addicted and on heroin, and ran over, mangled by a car. And when the mother, was exposed to that, she had a full nervous breakdown. Can you blame her? I sat in my car after getting those 3 hugs and after talking to Kim and after feeding the dogs their little treat. They have these humanely raised pork, apple, and egg yolk treats that are meant for humans. And they were 3 for $5. And Pablo and Luna just absolutely loved them. As much as I would like them to be plant-based, we really need to work on that. I really do. But I cannot do everything at one time right now. I do feed the rabbits organic blueberries and oatmeal every night if I don't have extra blueberries on, because I'll get 3 containers of blueberries and I dump half of one of them out there for them. And even people at the gym are like, you gave them organic blueberries? And I'm like, don't they deserve to eat too? I give them the strawberries, I gave them some raspberries, I gave them blueberries, I cut up apples and put them out there. I go out there and I take a big metal bowl or an old crock pot bowl that I'm no longer using. I kind of push it down into the snow. And I take those big containers of organic oats that I get at Walmart for $2.97, and I dump the oats in there. They love it. And it helps them to put on fat on their body during the winter, stay warm because they're outside and it's freezing. And then I pour some fruit on the top of it and they love it. And then sometimes I just peek out the window. I feel like a little child again, like it's Christmas time or something like that when you were a little tiny child. And I open the window and I kind of look to see if they're eating in the bowl, and it makes me happy. It makes me feel really good that I'm doing something, So if I have to move, I'm sorry, bunnies, I may be moving further out where there's wolves and bears and moose and all kinds of stuff. So it's not easy when your child goes. If you've lost your children, drop me a comment down below. Let me know how you're doing. And let me just tell you right now, I send you so much love. I send you so much love because it is just excruciating. And the comment that I told you in my live stream yesterday was, going to the sewing place and dropping off my shirt and hearing, how are you doing? Oh, by the way, I'm been having a really rough day, still? Wow. Oof, right? Or hearing from my son's partner of 4.5 years, her mother told me that her father said, well, she couldn't save her own son. How is she going to save so-and-so? And I was like, ooh, ouch, right? People, please think about what you're saying before you say it. People do not do drugs because they want to be addicts. They don't do drugs for that reason. They might have started that way, but they're not doing drugs because they really, really want to. There's some sort of pain. People are not morbidly obese because they want to be. They don't want to be morbidly obese. They don't want to be alcoholics. They don't want to be addicted to drugs. There's a monkey in the brain, if you want to call it that, monkey mind, not a real monkey. No offense to monkeys, because I grew up with monkeys and I love them. Capuchins and woolly monkeys and spider monkeys, 3 different types of monkeys that would bite everybody, and I would be holding them and they'd crawl on my neck, and I loved them. And snakes and monkeys and big mynah birds and all. I'm just really, really an animal person, and I really connect with animals and their telepathy and their innate love and their kindness and just their quality of compassion as compared to the human animal today in its perturbed state. It's a very perturbed, sometimes I call it a deranged, and deranged is different, meaning that the balance is so off that now the mind doesn't think straight. But the perturbed state is Why am I constantly being taxed? I got to buy toilet paper, and I got to buy this, and I got to buy Kotex, and I got to pay for this, and I got to buy the insurance, and I got to pay for the garbage pickup, and blah, 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 blah. That's a perturbed state. That means you're like, God, when are you going to get off my back and quit trying to tax me? Do I have to pay to, I have to pay to live, right? But when did it become that I have to pay to live with money? That's why they used to use the expression, are you shelling out, right? What does that mean? Am I shelling out? Think about that for a minute. If you know what I'm talking about, drop it down below in the comments section. Val, if you're listening, I got your email and I didn't hear from you today. I was in Duluth most of the whole day. I didn't get home till 6 o'clock. And I found out that the power was out all day today for 5 hours over here where I'm at. So I guess I didn't get a chance to see you, and maybe I'll see you another time. But I'm going to end it for now. I'm going to finish drinking my tea. And if you'd like, you can go to my website at naturallywithkaren.com. I'm going to be doing an email on my list tonight. And I'm going to be talking about the course that I'm starting next week on March the 5th with Dr. Sherry Tenpenny. And it is a mandatory 5 hours of study a week. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that on my my email. So if you go to naturallywithkaren.com, like last time I told you my email address, and I got an email from about 8 people that were like, we love your dreads, and keep up the good work, and we're sorry about your son. And you just don't know how much that brightens my day, especially when you live alone, just me and the doggies. So thank you for your love and kindness, and thank you for the hugs at Whole Foods, and thank you, Kim, at Pure Luminosity, again, for being there and being an ear today when I was like, oh my gosh, I can't take this anymore. Thank you, Pam, for coming through with finding a handyman who's going to be here next Friday and take a look at things and give me an idea on what I'm looking at. I already made a list of everything I need to do so I don't forget. And now I've got to dig in and start doing some cleaning and organizing around my work schedule. If you go to naturallywithkaren.com, there's a little place on the front page, the home page of the website, where you can sign up for my email list so you can get the emails. I don't send them very often. I might go on once in a while I go on where I send a little bit more. But I'm going to be sharing with you about what I'm learning in little short, concise emails through the MVI Bootcamp 2020, which teaches about attenuation and recombinant and issues concerning vaccines. So much like the measles vaccine, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, DO, osteopathic doctor, she has taught me already that the measles vaccine, for example, 1,234 people out of 763 million that died of measles were severely vitamin A deficient. So they didn't just randomly die of the measles because they weren't vaccinated. They were severely vitamin A deficient. This is why I keep asking you, if you go to naturallywithkaren.com and you click on the shop tab, you can see that there's a hair tissue test and a consult. You really do need the consult, ideally. If you can't afford both, then just get the hair tissue and click on the hair testing tab and order the profile number 2, because the profile number 1 doesn't give you much. I'm probably going to actually take it off my website at some point. It's $140 for the test. And when you click and you order that, I mail you out immediately your test kit, which has a little hair scale in it and a short little submittal form that you can check your symptoms, write your medications, write your address and everything. And then you're going to get an email report, and it's going to be 10 to 12 pages, a patient report from an EPA approved lab. And it's going to show your nutritional elements like calcium, magnesium, sulfur, chromium, manganese. You can pay the extra $10 and I'll get you your boron. Boron is an extra $10 from the lab now. So it's going to give you sodium, potassium. It's going to give you the whole list of the primary nutritional elements. We know them as minerals usually. And on the other right side in the red category, it's going to give you the toxic elements. Those are heavy metals as well: arsenic, cadmium, uranium, lead, mercury. And mercury is the slippery one, so it doesn't always show up. So I need to work with you and get it to where, as Dr. Watts says, you will mobilize. The key language is mobilize, make it move out of where it's stuck, and excrete, which means through the sweat, through the urine, through the bowel movements, you start to get rid of these things And then pretty soon the neurotoxicity goes away. And what I'm going to be doing as very, very special content that will be paid for content eventually is how to actually bring your IQ way, way, way up to a genius level, which is something that I have done and proven that I've done. And this is something that in a world full of people that say, my God, I own a business and I've got such brain fog, I can't remember things, I'm forgetting things, which you can do when you're also under a great deal of stress. You can start to stammer on your words a little bit because you're missing a beat. You're missing the heartbeat of the person that you love. You're missing a beat in life, like things just don't feel the same. So thank you for listening. I hope that you'll subscribe and support me because I'm going to get more and more steady. I'm going to give you what took me 36 years to live in a nice condensed fashion. I'm also going to be putting forth my books, not just courses like Dr. Sherry Tenpenny D.O., but Herbal Knowledge, Michael Tierra and Christopher Hobbs. You can look them up. Reading a lot from Riane Eisler when her first book came out, Merlin Stone, learning from the grandmothers, which was probably the most crucial of all, learning how to read the human aura and learning how to read the nature field from the time I was young. So thank you for joining me, and I'm going to say so long for now. It looks like there is 3 people here, and I want to thank you for joining me and say have a wonderful night. And if you're dealing with a child right now, you're interacting with a child that's going through addiction, don't hesitate to email me at naturallywithkaren@gmail.com. But you can also go to my website and get on that list. Thank you.